Have you been
Yeah,
what? Nesting?
everything like for the last 10 months is like all the work has now started to really synchronize and come into each other. And yeah,
Really?
it's fascinating. Kirsten and I are in the best place we've been in eons.
Really?
Yeah.
So when you say all the work that you've been doing, are you talking about together or individually and together, or are you talking about like beyond the two of you?
Well, there's all three really. But the focus has been initially individually, and that then goes to wherever we need to go individually. But then the other thing is together we've just thanks Gorgeous, that's created and prompted a whole um, myriad of stuff between the two of us. So yeah,
Yeah.
pretty
Cool.
cool.
Very cool. Hi, Kirsty.
Hey Todd, how you doing?
I'm pretty good. I see the wheels are coming off the rails over there in Australia.
Yeah,
Really, it's
pretty exciting.
everywhere, huh?
Pretty exciting.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, we're obviously not going to talk about this, but I mean, uh, it's not just there; it's actually everywhere. You know, it's
Yeah.
everywhere. Like over here in the last 5 days, the White House puts out on whitehouse.gov, which is their website, and it basically says if you're vaccinated, you're going to have a great Christmas. And this is literally verbatim. The second paragraph was, if you're unvaccinated, you'll be experiencing illness, death, and basically having a hard time getting into the hospital because you're going to be overcrowded. If this is on the White House website, and quite a few people have put
Yeah.
it out there. I saw it when it first came out, and then I saw yesterday that Trump. I mean, I think this ought to let everybody know in America that they're all basically on the same side. Whether they want to admit it or not. But he said the only people that are dying are the unvaccinated. He actually said that. I'm like,
Wow.
what the hell are you talking about? I mean, it's not even a question of vaccinated or unvaccinated. I'm just saying it's not even about that. It's just about the fact that it's just a bunch of BS. I mean,
Mm.
it's just a bunch of BS, and the people are realizing that. They really are. I think there was almost 1 million people in Parliament Square in London Saturday, and
That's
I know they've been demonstrating over there in
mm.
Australia.
One thing I would say about what you just said about Trump, like who knows? Um, I was listening to Crystal Time,
Hmm.
who she puts out great stuff. And I was listening to her the other day, and she was she's talking about all the coding and everything that's being given to us. And she said something about death meaning being coded as ascension.
Yeah.
So, death's not bad, it's actually coded as ascension. So, when you look at it in that context, I guess what he's saying is kind of aligned with that aspect of it as well. But, who knows? I also wanted to mention too, because my mum actually shared with me a video from Eldora and Saman. I think they're currently in Mexico or something, about Australia being the solar plexus of chakra of the world,
Yeah.
and how when we as a collective in Australia stand up, we will create the momentum for the rest of the world to do the same, which I thought was really cool.
I've said that from the beginning, not because I'm smart, just
Yeah,
because I had a feeling. I had a feeling
yeah,
that everything will, because that's where it was the most, severe, I guess.
yeah.
Severe as in restrictions, and particularly Victoria. But yeah, I just felt like everyone in the world thinks that. I mean, I think anyone I've ever come across, whether they're American or not, you always think we always thought of Australia as this really progressive place. Everybody's, just like, I mean, it's like totally for the people and stuff, and yet it was the most oppressed. It only made sense that that's where it will turn. And I think the other thing that's interesting too, because I think you know, it could be, reasonably argued that the United States has kind of set the precedent for everything since World War II. And the interesting thing is, you don't see anything, which, they don't report anything, but you don't hear anything or see anything about Australia in our news. Very, very
Oh,
little. I went
yeah, okay.
to I went to the post office today to mail Morgan a box, and then I the postmaster, and then somebody I talked to the other day from here, and another person from here, like sending me messages going, "Hey man, what the hell is going on down there?" The guy at the post office thought that the internment camps were already, you know, being populated. Like, so people really don't have an idea of what's happening.
Mm.
I just
I
saw
don't,
this,
yeah.
you
I
know.
don't think people in Australia really have an idea of what's happening because they're just complying and
I
watching.
think, it's just so crazy. It's like it's going to be pushed until people just say, "I've had enough," which is really the same pattern that we all had when we decided to wake up.
Yeah.
Mm.
Or
Yeah.
even getting on the subject of couples, we were, Morgan downloaded that, couples needed to come on to be seen, not really knowing, just knowing that from an energetic level or a frequency level that they're supposed to be seen because they're carrying the frequency that we're all coming into. Not that single people can't, or it's just that it's more abundant because it's a physical, it's not within yourself, it's actually a physical mirror of you that you're actually, carrying the frequency mutually of unconditional love, or the highest frequency of that, which we're speaking of. But so the first couple that we had was Juliet's mother. Juliet was that 18-year-old that came on from Australia, and her mother came on with her, I think, that first time, and really nice lady, Claudia, and then her husband, Spencer.
Spencer.
Yeah, they came on, and
Oh,
so it was so cool because Spencer was the one we didn't know, and I remember asking her about him, and it was a lot of the women we talked to that come on by themselves. Many cases when they talk about their husband, they'll say, "Well, he's awake, but he doesn't know it," kind of thing. Like he facilitates and supports, but he doesn't really take in our conversations. And I remember asking her and Juliet, "What does he ever walk in when y'all are talking about stuff like this?" And but anyway, so when he came on, he was like woke. I mean, not woke like the media says, "Well, you're woke," but I mean, like in the context of these communities. And then I said to him, like, how's it been? Whatever. I can't remember the exact question. He said, "Yeah, I've been having these huge elevations or expansions, and I just had one uh, at the 11th hour, basically." And he's like, on October 31st, and she's like, "Yeah, it's 6:15 in the evening." And the reason I bring this up is because uh, of what I was saying about people getting to the point where they're just going to say, "You know what? I don't care. Whatever your threat is, I'm not abiding." And of course, we're seeing a lot of that anyway. But they were very open, and she said, I mean, they've been together over 20 years, and she's like, I was out the door, and he said, "I woke up, I figured it out."
yeah.
Just basically listen to her what she's saying. I mean, it was really interesting though. So, and I thought it was interesting too that y'all were coming on, because she's just filmed this thing up ever since she put that post out, and I haven't really been glancing at the calendar. I didn't even put up a post today announcing it. My bad. But so you guys have, I think you and maybe there's one other couple I can think of, but really not like you guys. Whenever y'all come on, you always, it's almost like what we're figuring that needs to be presented with these couples is just as raw and authentic and open as people can be, not take anything from them if they if they want to keep some things private. But you guys have always been pretty open. Like, I mean, you've come on a couple of occasions, and we've been through a lot. I mean, we've been doing shows since 2019,
You
and
never know what you're going to get with us, do you?
I mean, but I just thought, wow, they've done this. I wonder what this is going to be like. But I remember on a couple of occasions, you guys coming on and you weren't exactly happy with each other. And Morgan and I have done that too, so I can totally relate. but but it didn't mean that you didn't love each other, and it didn't mean that you didn't even you
Totally.
express it. You loved each other, but you were just like, hey, right now we're just not aligned. But so I was like, wow, that's going to be interesting, because what I think is coming, people seeing the real stuff, not taking anything away from it, but not the angels and the galactics and the visitations and the dragons but the real stuff going on with two people, is the real code, so I thought, wow, that's going to be cool. Let's see. Somebody's, I don't know. Somebody's sister lives around the corner from Morgan. They're good friends with. Do you know that? Maybe I did. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't get that. I didn't understand it right. So, and that's the other thing too. Like this year, because I mean, we've done shows like individually and then with y'all together, probably maybe 2 together. But I mean, like, yeah, I remember the last time y'all were on, it was just like y'all had just come out of, I don't know, you're just in this euphoric state of mutual reverence.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, it went back down again.
Yeah. 3 times.
It went back down again.
Yeah.
Or did it, as opposed to down, did it just go that way?
Well, yeah, it just went out again. I think probably the difference between then and now, that was around your birthday, wasn't it? I think.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's more grounded now. Like we've really grounded the frequency that you're talking about, Todd. Like we have seriously put ourselves through the ringer this year, from a relationship perspective, and showed each other the door. And we actually went camping last week, which was amazing. We were camping just behind the dunes at the beach, so we had the sound of the waves the whole time we were there. We were there for 3 days, and it was just a really beautiful reconnection. We had the girls were with us, and there was no one around, so we were skinny dipping on the beach and just having a really awesome, beautiful time. And at the end of it, I said to James, how many times this year have we talked about not being together anymore? And he's like, more than ever. Yet here we are. And every single time we've woken up and we've chosen each other. And it brings us to this place where it feels for me really grounded now from the work that I've done personally with both my masculine and my feminine and my inner child and my co-creation. And it just feels like, right, this is it. Like we've chosen this, and we don't have to doubt it anymore. Like we've spent nearly 23 years doubting it, and we don't need to doubt it anymore. The power of it.
We went through the mother-father wound down into the deep primordial father work. Descended far more than we did. We've done a lot of healing on our bloodlines individually and collectively, but over the years. But this one, for me, it was I was owned, and I've been in the process of owning my wild man, my one that harbors the forest, is the forest, masters the forest, and grounds shit. And
not just shit, good stuff as well.
Yeah, good point. But you can have good shit too. You can. Good shit. So I was getting all serious, and now you bring humor to what you're doing, but that's normally my job.
I know, I'm just channeling.
Yeah, good, awesome. So that's brought a level of confidence within me, which caused Kirsty to then have to recalibrate her confidence, and I watched when she steps into her masculine, and the little boy in me would come out, and he'd play, and he'd go, I don't like this. I don't connect with her anymore. I like her in a feminine more. And I'd go, no, you scared little bastard. And so brought him up and had a number of chats with him, because he wasn't allowing our connection to, because of his fear, it wasn't allowing our connection to actually solidify. So, there's been so much, you asked the question right up front, was it individually, was it together, or was it at another level? And I said all three, but it all started with the individual process of both of us owning, where we were in ourselves, and then going deeper into that. And I've had a deep mother wound for eons, hence why I was attracted to so many testosterone-filled environments to attempt to prove myself, etc. And so the going beyond and healing all that and coming into this balance individually has caused the two of us to really come back to where we were always, at a deepest level, always have been, haven't left. We just needed to wake up to that fact, I suppose.
Did you watch that show with Spencer and Claudia? Because
Not on Facebook, really.
hey, I don't blame you. No, the reason I'm bringing it up is because of what you just said, and just to give you, I think this is what you're saying. It was really beautiful what they said. But at the beginning of the show, I asked him, how did you guys meet? And he was a musician, or I think a lead singer, like in a rock band. And she went out, and she was coming off a relationship. She wouldn't have anything to do with anyone anyway. Long story short, they end up kissing that night. He said, when I saw her across the room, I knew I was going to marry her. And, so it was that whole frequency of purity, and innocence and bewilderment and all those things. And so when we got to the end of the show, and they were talking about October, which we can go back to, because that was a big month for, I think, everybody. It was also a very big month for Morgan and I. And so this must have been a big month for them, because on October 31st, as she was about to head out, he pulled his finger out, and I guess, and saw the light. And it was beautiful, though. And you could tell, even through whatever, they must all always had a great chemistry. But basically, I guess in one way or another, I must have said something like, so where are you at now? And they said, and he said, well, we're back at that place. It's just like when we met, just like that. The energy is just like that night we met. I thought, wow, that makes sense to me. Is that similar to what I know there's 20 plus years, but I mean, they were talking about how they, stay up all night talking now, just.
Yeah, that's what I mean by being more grounded. Like, it feels the attraction has returned.
Yeah.
But it's so much more mature than it was before. And it just feels, it feels stronger as a result of that. Would you agree?
That's the whole point, is that the maturation, but the healing of so many things.
Yeah. Because
it's caused that maturation process.
Yeah, because in that little boy and that little girl, there's the manipulator energy, and there's all of that we've worked with together, and the innocence and that kind of thing. And now it's, when James talked about the masculine, like, I had a dream the other night, and I was in the dream, I was being accosted by two men. There were two men, and there was a violation energy, and there was an attacking energy, and one of the guys came up, and I remember, and he was in, I don't know who he was, I don't remember the face, I just remember that it was a male energy, and he came and he stood in front of me, and he was standing over me, and he was yelling at me, and my daughter, my youngest daughter Penny, was there, and I looked up at him, and just in the moment, in the dream, all of a sudden I stood there. And I just stood in my power, and I looked at him, and I grabbed his face like this, and I pulled him so that he was forced against me. And I said, there is nothing you can do to me that will intimidate me. And I woke up, and I felt like, whoa, that was really powerful. And that's how it feels like the power between us now is like the masculine is standing and the feminine is like
flowing,
open, and in both of us, and it's moving with so much more grace and ease than it ever has before.
That's pretty sexy. All we need is some dunes and the waves, the sound of the waves.
There's a little cave in the cliff.
The wild. I guess you're finding your wild now.
Yeah.
Well, for so long, man, like a lot of the work I've been doing actually is in pleasure, in allowing myself to experience pleasure in its ultimate. And as you know, I spend a lot of time in nature, and I was talking with a woman one day, and she says, "Who's to say the trees aren't in a constant, perpetual state of orgasm?" And that one line resonated so much with me, because that's actually how I feel when it's just me in the bush. It's like this place is in this natural harmonic of ecstasy.
Bliss.
Yeah. And I realized there's so many reasons that I wouldn't allow myself to experience pleasure. And, a huge aspect of that was my sexual pleasure. But it's not the only aspect. Actually, realistically, it was a component of it, because what I was using was the sexual understanding to be transposed into the greater understanding of life, and particularly my creativity, and which, obviously the two are the same. And that permission was by allowing myself to dive into the deepest of shame that I had in it. It wasn't just, as people will know, chakras. It wasn't just a second chakra issue. Actually, a lot of shamans will say every issue you have is a second chakra issue, and then the other chakra, because it will present itself in this realm through the second chakra. And I'm actually witnessing in a lot of the healing I've been doing on myself, which then so often reflects the healing I'm helping other people, particularly men, with. Actually, at the moment, a lot of women asking for help owning their wild woman. And again, owning the fire and the wild woman is caused, well, the need to do it is caused because of the shaming and the guilt, etc., and the compartmentalization of life that we so often occur, and having them be in a place where they can safely go into this energy, into their fire, and realizing a lot of them feel that they'll be burnt by their fire, and allow them. And when I say my wild man, it's like my wild man can create a grove in a sanctuary in the wilderness energy, and that fire is in the center, and they can come in and they can get used to the fire, and then they become the fire, and they realize that to master anything, one becomes it. It's integral. It becomes, one transcends and then integrates it into our very being, our essence. And then we come to this place of mastery. It's the same in any spiritual practice. It's the same with emotion. Emotional healing is all about the healing, then the transcendence, and then the integration of it. So it then is becoming one with me, and I'm intimate with it as opposed to literate in it. And it's the same with this energy that, I'm speaking for myself, that I've been working on, that's then had this dramatic effect. And, I even apologized to Kirsty not too long ago for the amount of times in 20 years that the boy has tried to be in the bedroom, and he doesn't belong in the bedroom. That's space for the man. He belongs in my heart space, in my playground, and he keeps knocking on the boardroom door going, "Hey, James, come out and play, because you're being too bloody serious, or you're too focused. Come out and experience." And that's part of my lover coming out and nourishing the rest of my life. But that's
like today he's come out cheese.
Cheese is my nickname that I actually disowned. I had to disown, and it came back to me when I owned it as my inner child, my little boy. But for so long I hid under Cheese and refused to own James, which is regal, and it's my majestic name. Yeah. So the little boy's come out today.
When we first started going out, we were buddies, And I used to call him Cheese. And then, like, we got into a relationship together, and I'm like, I can't call you Cheese anymore. Like, you know, we can't be being intimate. And I'm like, oh, Cheese. So I
That's
started calling
that's
him Ben.
such a that totally kills the frequency right there. So
Well, her nickname
what?
for me, Blood Guts.
So
Your
what's
nickname.
the? And don't worry, we'll get to Kirsty. But I got to know. So what? Just so for clarification, because I can relate to what you're saying. Like um, before I ask you the question, the the route, the experience of arousal has changed. Like
Mm.
I don't know, it hasn't changed. It's gone back to like when you're a teenager, like when you're with your first girlfriend, like when you're, you know, like everything's new, like kind of thing. I don't know. It just does. It just comes through in a totally different way. But I was going to ask you, what's the difference, just for clarification? Like, what's the difference between when the boy shows up in the bedroom and the man?
Boy needs permission.
Ah,
The boy's in his head. The man's in his heart. He's so in tune. He's in the moment. He feels her. He holds space. He matches and mirrors. She feels safe. She starts to increase. You feel the tempo. The ocean starts to really, really get deep, and the man opens even further, opens the space, the grove even bigger, and she starts to fucking flow, and it's like intense. And the man doesn't run from that. Boy goes, oh, this is really cool. Oh, we're having a great trip. Oh. But the man goes, fuck, yes, I see you. I fucking love you. I fucking love everything of you. And I'm here for you.
Thanks for my attention to this video.
Well, they censor everything else. So
I can relate to this, although I'm not physically in the same spot, but I can totally relate to what you're saying. I gotta have to get a Kleenex. Jesus Christ, man, that was like a pheromone activation or something. Holy shit, Kirsty. So, oh, we can back off of that subject for a minute. But like,
never gonna get.
well, I mean, you guys, somebody just made a comment too a minute ago. They were talking about how it's nice to see.
We haven't got comments on.
Yeah, they said something about it's nice to see a couple where they're both doing their individual work with themselves, and then within the relationship, you know, applying that within the relationship as well. But you guys always talk about, even when you're on together, you know, you talk about your personal, the work that you do on yourself. I mean, did something change, Kirsty? I mean, like for the feminine side, uh, you know, to me, there felt like obviously there was some kind of major shift. You know, in October was a really big month. I mean, it was like a really big month. But I mean, it was interesting because I can relate to James, like what he just said, not just in that particular aspect, but as the whole. Like the whole thing feels like that to me. Like every time I expand, I see her in a totally different way. You know, I can't describe it like he can. But like, did you notice anything significant? Was there something within yourself or within him or both that you went, oh, we haven't seen that before, or oh, I didn't see that before. Haven't discovered that until now about myself or about him or about us.
The greatest thing for me in our process was choosing to allow him to completely free his wings from me, from our family,
Yeah.
and giving him, like, showing him the door is, you know, the way we've said it, giving him permission to go and do what he needs to do to find himself. And for me, that brings up all of my not enoughness of my wounded little girl. And so she then gets an opportunity to see where I'm still relying on him where that where that codependence is, and when you're in a relationship for any period, any extended period of time, you do develop that sense of codependence. And so for us, it really kind of took us from here to here in a way that it had never done before. And operating as two separate beings, like really as two separate beings, not with, because we've done that before, and we've talked about before before James went to Iraq and we were cohabitating, but we were we were living separately, but I had so much resentment and he had so much going on. Whereas this time it was, we were both making a choice to do this together, and whatever the outcome was, we were going to support one another, whether that meant coming back together, separating, whatever it was, we were going to do it together and we were going to support one another. And for me, that was what really helped me to strengthen my own sense of masculine, which is that part of me that knows that I don't have to give away myself to anybody. I don't have to give myself away to anybody. I don't have to overgive, and therefore I don't exhaust myself when I'm giving, and that means that I can receive fully. And so I allowed myself to experience that aspect of me, which has brought this which really cemented our sense of independence from one another, which actually strengthens our interdependence. So that when we come together, there's not that energy drain, from a sexual perspective. Yeah, we're not feeding off each other. We're not there's no expectation there from either party. There is simply, in all aspects, we're equals and we're sovereign beings coming together as a king and a queen, and we're creating life.
Yeah, I think that's that whole creativity thing. Maybe that's why you were talking about James, whoever said that everything is associated with the sacral and then wherever else, right? I mean, but that there seems to be almost like a creative, I guess everything parallel, all the parallels, creativity and the honesty and the connection and all, but creativity in particular seems to be the purpose of it all. Okay, here we are, here we've landed in this spot. Obviously there's others that seem to be experiencing something similar, and what do we do with it? I mean, obviously we all have stuff in motion already, but almost not so much what we do with it, but wow, how far can we take this? It's almost like somebody just erased all the rules. And I don't know if that's something that's come to the forefront with y'all, these last few months or even weeks, but have you had an uptick in your creativity, your collaboration, your individual, passions that you when you're working with people and the stuff that you do?
Well, you just hit something really important on the head, and that was we let go of all rules, all boundaries. So, and what things had to be like. We looked at marriage as an archetype, and then let it out the door, so that individually we could allow ourselves to explore all this different thing, which then would bring, it brought up so much shame and guilt in so many respects. And then exploring it deeper and understanding why, and all these limitations and boundaries that I didn't understand, I'd inherited. Letting them go then has deepened my connection to the divine in such a way. And
it's brought more compassion, because we looked at it, because of what James said, we looked at it from an archetypal perspective. We didn't need to bring it into the physical and play it out physically. We were able to see it at that 4D archetypal level and address it there.
And one of the biggest things that happened, and it happened about a bit over a month ago, is I went deeper into my own heart space and it softened. And I really felt the feminine aspect of the masculine. Not the feminine, but the feminine
Right.
aspect of the masculine, which so often people look at the yin and the yang and they forget the little circles. And the circles represent the opposite within that pole of energy. And that really softened my heart space. And so literally I came home in a discussion around the kitchen table, and I have 3 women in my house now. It's just like amazing. Our 2 daughters just are incredible. But they're women in their own right. And I'm witnessing a conversation and I'm leading the conversation. And in that leading, there's this really a soft strength naturally comes out of me. And that's something I've always had, but now it's been integrated more deeply, and I'm more consciously engaged with it on this deeper level. And that's this compassion that Kirsty rightly mentions. That's that processing and that space within my own heart space has allowed for that compassion. And so I've detached from so much which is going on in the outside world, because I'm unplugging from anything that it just doesn't serve me anymore. And it's not that I'm ignorant or I am deluding myself at all. Actually, what's happening is my understanding is actually ascending even deeper, which means that my compassion for it is being witnessed. We drove past a testing station for COVID the other day, and like there's a massive amount of cars waiting to be tested in a small country town. And the point of it, I witnessed the conversation in the car, and just by seeing it and people in the car seeing the testing station, all of a sudden the density of the conversation dropped dramatically, like that. And I didn't decide to engage the conversation. I didn't pull the conversation up. I just witnessed the conversation, and then that was my turn to turn my heart space up, to allow myself to be more in love with everything around me, and not interject, because they're going through their own thing. You've had
it's so obvious that it's a frequency game now, like having really raised our own individual and together frequency these last 18 months, 2 years. We can see it, like everything is so clear, and it just now, having really pulled ourselves away from that world, there's so much more creator energy that's available to us, because the frequency is so high and everything's moving so quickly in this new realm that it amps up our ability to create as well. That's what I'm noticing.
And it's the for me, like opening my doorway to pleasure and surrendering my will into complete alignment with divine will has meant that the creation that I'm involved in now is pleasurable to me. It's like everything. I've just been up in my workshop doing some stuff for Christmas. Like I've got my own Santa workshop up there happening right now, and like what I'm doing, everything I'm doing, I'm like, it might be the most mundane thing.
Yeah.
Sanding a piece of wood is not my most favorite thing, but the thing is, I can now infuse that sanding with this place because of what it's helping me produce. And so it's from that. It's from my discussions with my daughter. I had the most amazing time with my daughter in the car driving up to get her road test so that she can become a learner driver, and she nailed it. But there's a great example of work. Let me use this as an example. So I took her up on Monday, and she didn't have the appropriate paperwork. She was very anxious, had a big anxiety attack, and we're sitting there. We can help them with this, but they've got to ask for our help, and they know what we can do with them because we do it constantly whenever they ask for help. But she didn't prepare, and she'd spent a lot of time with friends and everything, distracting herself from the anxiety about this test, because if she doesn't complete the test, she can't drive. Like, she can't become a learner driver in Australia. So anyway, we're there, and she doesn't have the correct stuff, so she's turned away at the counter. And I'm witnessing this, and so we walk away, and she's angry, She's really, really angry. So I'm with her and I just ask her, just naming it. So how are you feeling? I'm really angry. So I was just with her and she went through a process for however long. And then we were driving back down to where we live, about an hour south of where we were. And she goes, oh, can you drop me at my friend's place? Because she was going to do that later in the day. And I've gone, I can do that. And I sat, because there was an environment in the car. There was a couple of people in the car that are great friends, but at the same time, they're not our family. And do I choose to call shit now in front of them, or do I choose to simply love? And I realized in choosing to simply love, the difference I have to walk as a father now is to be supportive, not an enabler. And so how do I ensure I'm not an enabler and I can lovingly support? And I sat in it and my heart spoke, James, speak. And so I very quietly asked a whole heap of questions for her to reflect on, not needing an answer in a specific way. And I asked her, is going to your friend's place right now the best thing to do for you, given everything which is currently going on, the fact that you're going through this stuff, is that the best thing to do, or are you going to distract yourself again? Now, in the end, she chose to go to a friend's place. I got out of the car to give her a hug afterwards. She looked me in the eye and she says, I know the work I have to do. I feel this is where I need to be. And I just smiled at her, gave her a kiss and a hug. She went, and I took her up yesterday and she nailed this thing. She manifested the most amazing attendants behind who weren't fixated on admin, and they weren't crusty old ladies that really got their knickers in a knot about some shit that wasn't right on a piece of paper. They were these amazing, supportive people who said, and listen, if you need help, just put your hand up, and if you don't understand a question, I can reframe it for you. And you see her anxiety level like coming down. And the lady had named it. She said, so many people come here anxious, and I'm just witnessing my daughter manifest this incredible situation. And I'm realizing in my life, this is where I have to come from now, this soft, strong heart that sees, detachedly observes, and can respond in the appropriate, or interact in the appropriate way, as opposed to reacting and emotionally being triggered and thinking it's all about me because I'm the only man in the house and I'm the dad and I have to say this, and if they gob off at me or they speak back to me, that's disrespectful, and I can't have that, and you must do this, and that was the
rigidity.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's actually ever been me, but I witnessed my father. I love my father. He passed in 2003, and he was my best friend when he passed. But I witnessed in the last 6 months me thanking him for all the love he gave me and letting go of so much of the rigidity that he wasn't guided. He never had a father, and he wasn't guided in a way in which could possibly let that go. And I've found in my own space that place in here and that connection to my own divine that has allowed me to do that. And that's probably, I'm sorry, but I'm actually in a moment of self-gratitude when I've spoken. So
Wow.
Thanks.
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool. And then you mentioned earlier, Kirsty, you mentioned the word resent. One of you mentioned that word. That doesn't seem to be coming with us. But I always look at, right. I always look at trust. And, I think not only do you have like personal epiphanies, but you have collective epiphanies, like where you realize, oh, wow, this is how it works for everybody. And so one of those things is trust. And if you, this is, just in the last few weeks, and I look at it and go, wow, if you're in a female body on this earth, I mean, we get collective energy. So why not apply the same principle to collective conditioning is what I'm saying. So in other words, I can see how a feminine energy just basically can't trust. Right. I mean, I don't mean that, in like a bad way. I just mean like, as I try to like feel into that, how could I trust the masculine energy, period, kind of thing. And then having been on this route, my experience had always been, I don't understand why, and I'm not talking about Morgan, I'm talking about throughout my whole life with women, with my daughters, with whatever, why don't you trust me? Because I'm a big believer that karma is based on intent. So that really cleans it up for me for both sides, because neither side is but I think where I was going with this was like from a woman's standpoint that's been in a long-term relationship, and then and both of you guys have been doing the work, and you've been aware, and you're extending yourself in terms of growth and all that. Like, did you feel a shift this year or recently or whatever, as a woman, in terms of trust, and not to say that it's just specific to James, but I mean just the masculine energy as a
Oh,
whole?
absolutely.
Thanks for bringing that one up.
You know what you're just saying about the masculine though, and like not trusting the masculine. I think the same thing goes with us from a societal perspective of not trusting the feminine, because we all know at a soul level that that the feminine is like that aspect of us that the feminine has given herself away. Like, she's been oppressed and she's been given away, and so we don't trust the feminine. So we don't trust the masculine because it's out there all the time, and it's totally inverted. The masculine energy has been totally inverted in the patriarchal system, but we don't trust the feminine because we've not had a real connection with her either. So both of these aspects have been completely distorted.
Which means the dark feminine has actually risen.
Yeah, which means the dark feminine has risen, and she's the one, she's the dark witch that is behind the scenes, and she's Hela in Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, Lilith.
And so, yeah, Lilith. Yeah, that's right. And so for me, yeah, absolutely, it's trust, but it's trust of both of those aspects of myself. Trust of my ability to, if I surrender, if I like give over completely, I'm not going to be abused, because no one can abuse me when I hold myself at my center. And that's my masculine. So it's that amazing dance of where I'm constantly asking my feminine, can you trust yourself to surrender? And then my masculine, can you trust yourself to hold? And that play within then obviously transfers into our relationship. So I've also been this year for trust has been massive for me too, looking at where I've not trusted the masculine, and that's eons old, and how I have given myself away to the masculine as well, which is actually not trusting my feminine.
Yeah, what a great answer. Can I trust myself to surrender? Can I trust myself to hold? And I'm sitting here listening to you, and I've I can relate to this. Yeah, you're the counterpart, right? So I can relate to having those thoughts, understanding about the holding space and trying to learn about that. But there was this other thing involved with surrendering that that's how I would describe it. I never said those words to myself, but do I trust myself to surrender? It was never anything I questioned, but when I saw, or when I saw deeper, I saw there was levels of surrender that I hadn't gotten to, which had nothing to do with Morgan or any other person outside of me. It had to do with me, which goes back to what you were saying too about basically the way I say it is, well, or what I've come to is okay, nobody stopped me from doing anything. Nobody holds me back. Nobody gets in my, it's not like that. So why are there why were there these loops playing in my head that I was being held back, and obviously, blaming an external. So there goes blame, there goes the resentment, there goes the distrust. Everything just goes right out the door, and it's amazing because it's still an inside job, even though you're in a relationship, which is kind
one of the things I'm witnessing with a lot of men at the moment is, especially those that have actually started to open up and started to awaken. And obviously, if you're awakening and you don't have emotional literacy, then your journey of awakening will be tumultuous. If you are starting to awaken and you've got a deeper level of emotional literacy, then your journey will be a little less rocky. But the point about it is that some of them are taking these big steps forward and releasing, especially anger is a big one for men to get into, and release its hold on them so that they become counterparts. But releasing that dragon and then stopping. And if I'm witnessing quite a few people, they've done quite a bit of work and then they just stopped. And they might have done work for a number of years and they've just gone into incubation or whatever. At the moment now is not the time to incubate. It's the time to remember being brilliant at the base. Even as a squadron commander, when I was running around in the military, my number one tenet was be brilliant at the basics, so that you feel confident, capable, and credible. What do you need to do in this moment to feel confident, capable, and credible in what you're doing? And so I always get the guys to reflect on that, and so that would get them being proactive of mind. And it's exactly the same now in life. It's what do I need in this moment to feel confident, capable, and credible in my life? And so often bring this back to trust. Like, men don't trust our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because they we don't necessarily understand. Now, I say men. I work with both men and women, and I know a lot of women think they understand emotions, and I sit here being bemused by the whole experience, just loving and waiting for them to go through the wave of emotion to understand that they're actually completely misinterpreting what they were just experiencing. But that's all right. So it's not just this gender thing. I'm just speaking specifically from the man's point at the moment. It's with this masculine feminine thing, because internally, if I'm not trusting my feminine, I'm not trusting my emotions, and I'll numb myself to them. I'll put them in a box, and I'll make sure that I make it a very nice, elaborate box, and build it beautifully, but it's still in a box, because I don't trust it. If I actually go into that space, that it's not going to burn my ass. And it's the big deal for us men to really, if we want to start to deepen our connection with women, this inner journey of bringing my feminine in and allowing that emotion in me to actually be explored, to go in. I mentioned the fire before in the glade. Well, go into the fire of the emotions that you have. And shame and guilt are huge with men, because they violate they're demonstrating emotions that we are violating our own inner moral code and our code of honor. And if you look at the masculine, which is directly aligned to the divine masculine, to spirit, honor is about being in alignment. Honor is bestowed by a higher station, by spirit to the person. And if you are honored, you are said to have been in alignment with the higher station. You feel honored by receiving from the higher station an accolade which says you are acting in alignment. So honor is that guiding post, that guiding light for us to maintain this deep connection, this deep alignment. And shame and guilt come into us when we violate this honor code. And for men, especially those men that are born deep into the warrior spirit and that archetype, it's like, well, you don't go there. It's like samurai seppuku, which is the ceremonial suicide, when they have brought dishonor or they have shamed themselves, their family, and their shogun, and they will take their own life in an attempt to actually bring back honor, severing that in a very, very dramatic way. They will sever this life in order for that shame and guilt to remain there and be purified, so that they can then incarnate again and come forth a more pure version of themselves. It's really fascinating. But if we bring that all back to us in a daily life, for any of us who are not allowing ourselves to truly explore and not be violated by our emotions, it means we're not trusting our feminine. Mm-hmm. And if you won't trust your masculine if you don't feel your masculine can hold space within yourself and not destroy the shit not destroy everything around you, collateral damage, when you're going through this emotional space. So it's that inner dance, this inner vibrational dance that occurs, that it all comes back to trust.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good question.
So it was a good answer too. All of them have been. They always are with y'all. So Kirsty, I'm sitting here, even on this show, and I'm seeing 3 or 4 new names I haven't seen. I'm pretty good about keeping up with the names. They're men, and there's more and more men coming around over the last few weeks. In particular, there's like a new frequency of these men. It's very interesting. And so obviously I'm kind of tapped into that because I guess I'm going through the same thing. James is going through the same thing. But I mean, as far as like with the journey that you've had, of course, the 20 plus years together, your own personal stuff going on, and what's been going on this year, uh, is there a difference, or what are the differences that you feel about yourself? James talked about the self gratitude and some things to that effect. But like, uh, how do you feel now? Like maybe you didn't, or what have you come to? What have you realized? How do you feel about yourself? How do you see yourself as a woman?
The first thing that comes to me is that it's receiving the strength that I have to hold. And I guess I've not fully acknowledged it in the past, and I feel as though I'm seeing what so many others have seen in me, and it's something that I kind of just dismiss, and I'm like, yeah, that's why I'm here. But actually allowing myself to receive it now, and it's particularly, obviously in relationship with James, but also in relationship with my daughters, um, receiving the the mother that I am from a whole different perspective, because instead of needing to be the mother, I'm actually allowing myself to receive the mother as the lover, like as the I'm giving myself what what I want to give them as well, which means that I'm receiving so much more of what I'm giving to them. And this is with James, with the
Yeah.
girls, and with everybody else. And I guess that's the biggest thing for me, is I'm actually receiving more of the strength that I have, which gives me an ability to allow myself to feel more vulnerable. And because I'm actually seeing, wow, like, yeah, you do have the strength, and you can hold this, and it's okay, whatever comes, it's okay, and you are enough. And that's my deepest core wound, not being enough. And so it'll be something that I will I'll probably always have to deal with. But it's it's the constants that I'm allowing myself to receive what I've been gifting for so long, that gives me the deeper compassion, the deeper vulnerability now, that I didn't have before. Because before, I needed to be hard, I needed to be stoic, I needed to be the one who held it all together, because one of them might cave, or somebody else, they don't have it together, so I need to hold it. And there's a rigidity in that.
Right.
So now I'm feeling so much better at just letting go and letting God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And so, like, because like when I was listening to you and now listening to Kirsty, like, I can feel like this self gratitude and higher, um, just a higher who I am. I hear it coming through y'all's voice too. I mean, like, it's beyond confidence. It's like a personal respect, personal honor, personal love for yourself,
Yeah.
which has got to, I would imagine, has to, has to also be seen, I'm sure, in the relationship as well. But like James, like based on all this that's happened, all these changes, and all these showing the doors and coming back to love and expanding again. Uh, what's the best part of her? Like, I mean, what's your favorite part? Like, what's coming to the surface? Either that's been there that you're seeing in a bigger way, or some new quality that she has because she's let her wild woman hair down.
Confidence in that.
Yeah.
Like her level of confidence in been all aspects of the feminine has really, really grown, and you are allowing me to see you more, and you don't harden. Like, it's rather than being in the, because at times the thing that really pissed me off in our relationship was the false masculine in Kirsty. Why? Because I had the false masculine in me, so I was seeing it and I was being triggered, and that triggering would mean a disconnection between us until I get confident in my own masculine, so that I can see anything, and then I can witness it and then see through it, and by seeing through it, I don't engage it, which means it doesn't flare.
We don't react to it.
We don't react. So I'm not even, don't even engage that. It's all I'm doing is witnessing and seeing her now, and seeing her in a flow. And she touches me again. Like, she went away from touching me. One of my love languages is touch. And like, but there's a difference between touch and touching.
Yeah.
Like, I feel your touch now. It's not, I just have to touch him. Like, yeah. It's just, it's like, and there's nothing, there's everything in that touch, and I have an acute level of awareness, like, around me, and if she, like, Kirsty half the time doesn't even know she's doing it, I will know. And we were at the water fountain the other day, just filling up water bottles, and she dropped back into me, and I stood there and it didn't move back, and she just dropped back into me, and it was like, I'm just being acknowledged, and I'm receiving this woman coming back into me. And I stood there and I really loved, and I give you the big tip, it was no more than a second or two.
Yeah.
But for me, it was an eternity.
Yeah.
And really, and Kirsty didn't even know she did it. Didn't matter.
It's an honoring of each other as a result of honoring self. It's like it's a deeper honor now. It's an honor, and it's a deeper respect as well. You know, we've always respected each other, but it's respect and compassion as a result of the depth within, you know, from within.
Our journey, it's a good point about respect too. Like, our journey, the deep journey has been the last 12 years really, to get to where we are now. And generally, because I say once or twice that it wouldn't have occurred, but I could really count it on my hand. In that 12 years, the deep inner journey and the healing has been done with mutual respect on each other, and the very quick calling of, okay, there's projection in the room right now, and owning the projection and stuff like that. So, you know, otherwise, to do the healing that we've done, I still scratch my head sometimes and go, you know, if I was a fly on the wall in our relationship, this is better than Big Brother, man. Like, nothing can touch this thing. It's just, it's like, you couldn't write a book about the things that have gone on between the two of us, because no one would think it's really real. But the deeper thing, the reason why I've been able to travel that journey is because of respect. Point.
Wow. And then, you know, something I'm picking up too, you didn't actually say this, but it's like when you talk about observing and just holding, it's like when whatever happens, whatever it may be, it's not like pointed out. It's not like, it's just, you're just staying in that space of just, you know, letting the energy basically speak. In other words, oh, you did this, or I did this because you did that. None of that stuff, right? You know what I mean? It's just like, I don't know. It's empty space, but it says it all, basically, right? I mean, it's like respect and you know, honor being practiced. To me, as I'm listening to you, because things are coming to me, just like in my own situation, and it just watching this very quick evolution. You know, within the evolution itself of the individuals in the couple, but particularly these last few weeks, and even like these last 2 weeks. I know a lot of couples are not talked about the period, you know, I want to say, you know, a little bit before 12/12, you know, right up to the solstice. Did you guys experience any weird energy, not necessarily energy of conflict or chaos, but just weird energy? Was your body feeling any different? Were your emotions or anything at all?
I think that was
Yeah.
that's been a really strong period of rebellion. We noticed, and that showed up for us with our daughters. Yeah, I feel as though for me, I think that period sort of from the fourth through to now has just been so much bliss. Like I felt in a deeper state of bliss, but that's the depth of it. But then on the surface it's like really tumultuous because of everything, everything that's going on. And so there's almost like this disconnect if I'm getting caught up by what's going on out there, even if it's as much as my immediate family, there's a disconnect within me because like my body is just going, this totally doesn't resonate with what I'm feeling and experiencing. Would you?
Yeah, about a bit over a week ago, I'd woken in the middle of the night, and I don't mind if that happens. I'll generally get up and meditate because I love to meditate at night. Anyway, and I'd come out of meditation and gone back to bed and woke, and I'd just woken up, and Kirsty said, "Can you go and feed the dog?" And I said, "Yeah." So I'm rolling out of bed, and the dog came in under me, and he's a fairly sizable Labrador with a melon of a head, which is not a melon, it's a rock. And he's just smacked me right in the mouth. I didn't see it coming, and I've recoiled, and I've gone, "I want to hit you right now." And like I've gone, I rolled back in because I was actually in quite a fair bit of pain. I rolled back and I went, "That was really intense."
And
So,
I went,
yeah,
it was.
that was really intense. So anyway, I breathed into the pain and everything like this, and I just explore the energy. And so I went and fed the dog, apologized to the dog about my reaction, went and made a cuppa, and then on the walk, I took him for a walk and everything. And I'm sitting and I'm just witnessing. But the thing is, in the moment, I was really happy. I was really joyful, and I'm really enjoying my walk. But I'd felt this anger, this deep anger, sitting right there. Anyway, this friend rings me, and I was debriefing with her, and I said, "Yeah, I've got this rage in my chest right now." And as soon as I said it, I lost it. I literally started belly laughing. I had belly laugh for 2 minutes, and I'm just lucky that she's a loving friend. She sat on the other end while I pissed myself laughing for 2 minutes, and then it was gone. It was like, oh, she's gone, and that's what that little story just represents what so much has been happening for me at the moment. It's this. Kirsty mentioned this state of bliss and joy, and I do feel this state of pleasure and bliss and joy, but at the same time I'm witnessing other things. The difference is that before I would be engaged and often ensnared by that disruption, that lower flow. That it's like the undertow would come and rip my legs out and drag me back into the ocean. I've mentioned to you before, archetypally Christ walking on water is actually Christ transcending the unconscious and bringing the unconscious into light. And so he walks on water. It means that he is now the master of all consciousness, Christ consciousness. And so it's an analogy about the undertow grabbing you and ripping you down, not realizing, well, it's not happening. I can feel the undertow. It's not as if I'm always walking on water right now, but I can feel the undertow. But at my feet, even with shifting sands, my feet are still solid. And I'm still enjoying. I see the ocean, and I smile at her, and I go, "I see you. I see. You're really cool, and I respect you. I really respect you in all your pure rawity, but I'm not moving, and it's different."
I've been waking up every morning the last probably 5 days with the song from Aladdin in my head, "A Whole New World."
Oh yeah.
We watched the new Aladdin the other night, and I realized it was so coded. And the genie, in the end, like he gets a boat and he sails the world, and he's essentially doing what James is talking about. Like he's transcending that emotion, and he's like riding the waves. And there was so much in it. So much in that movie. I realized the other
Is
night.
there a new one out? I didn't know there was a new one.
There's one like from 2019
Okay.
or
I didn't
last
know.
few years. Will Smith plays the genie, and it's
Oh,
really fun.
okay. Yeah, because I certainly remember the other one because I saw it probably 50 times. So,
Yeah.
like, in terms of James's expansion, like from your perspective, Kirsty, like what I asked him a minute ago about his thoughts on you, but like any any attribute of his that really expanded, or something that came out of nowhere, like a favorite part of him that's kind of emerged or become more prominent?
Um, it's actually a reflection of what I said about me, which is that belief in himself, and um, the real man. Like when I first saw James, I was kind of a bit like Spencer. Like I was still married when I first ran into him, and the interaction between us was like that electric, oh my God, there's this like soul connection, and I call it love at first sight. And I knew from that moment that we were connected. And through this whole process, in letting him go, I've realized to what depth we are connected, and I've allowed myself to not kind of hold that at arm's length anymore, because it's scary. It's actually, okay, cool, we are connected, and I don't need to fight it anymore.
And then you fall into him.
Yeah, then I fall into him.
Well, I mean, you said it at the beginning of the show. You said something about I don't think you used the word doubt, but like we don't doubt it anymore. We don't have to doubt it anymore. Maybe that's a better way to say it. Not that you doubted, but you, like you said, it was so intense that it's scary, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I get what you're saying about that, but like you've reached a point now where it's real, I guess, even beyond acceptance.
Yeah.
I mean,
it just is.
It's like you mentioned trust. That a lot of the work we do is helping people under a thing called the law of polarity own the polar opposite of something. So if you look at trust, the opposite is control. So the more you trust, the less you need to control. The more you control, the less you trust. But that's still the same pendulum, and it's just all it is a ball at a different point of the swing. And by owning both poles in my life, I can go, right, this is the areas that I need to control most. Why? Because of X, Y, and Z, my belief system, etc. This is where I can trust because of A, B, and C. Again, belief system, awesome. Owning both, and then through this process of forgiveness, I transcend that pendulum swing, and I come to this point of knowing. And that point of knowing is when I now am in divine alignment, and I know that what I'm doing right now is what I'm meant to be doing. I don't completely understand why. I don't need to. I know that this is right now what I'm meant to be involved in. So I'm walking this path. Where am I? Where do I want to go? What's my next step? And that point of knowing, like, I've actually always had it with us. And even, I used to say we divorced.
We've both always had it.
Yeah.
We just resisted it. Our egos resisted it.
Yeah. And before this year, we came at the end of last year to a point where we hit 50 divorces, where we said we've divorced literally. And
he said that.
I used to say that. And I could recall most of them, and especially the last 10 years. But anyway, so we came to this point, 50, and then all of a sudden at the start of the year, I remember I was standing in the shower, we were talking about it, and it was completely different. We said, let go of the divorce thing now. So we've let go of that whole paradigm about, we're separating, we're divorcing. It's just let it go. Yeah. And go back to that point you made initially by letting go of all boundaries, predispositions, prescriptions about anything, things just let them go. And you think I should say, just let them go. And it's really been intriguing to have this sense of knowing. Now, it doesn't mean to say that my egoic self didn't question this sense of knowing. And this year, I've looked at her and I said, I'm no longer in love with her. I no longer find her attractive. I can't be stimulated inside myself by looking at her. That's an external thing by saying, well, what's Kirsty? My deepest feminine was actually being ignited elsewhere. And also it was because I'd let darkness fall on a part of my own inner feminine. And I disconnected myself from that until I went deeper into that aspect and shed light on it. I could then go, okay. And that's when all of a sudden she was, I don't know, she was wearing one of her flowy dresses again, and there it was. That was the spark again. I see it, and it's going, whoa, it's back. And it was nothing that she did. Absolutely nothing that Kirsty did.
Right.
Now, Kirsty's the type of person that goes off and does her own journey and own work. But it's like, yeah, okay, my egoic self was put on the bench, park bench, for long enough for the knowing to hold me on this journey. And then in that moment, I acknowledge that what I'm creating is this harmonic relationship which I want to be in. Yeah. And instead of need to be in because of obligation, because I'm a father of two, and we have a whole heap of stuff that we're currently doing together. It's when we say we stood on the door, we put all obligation to be cohabitating out the door with us. And head or heart, we had to answer with our heart. Couldn't be the head. Do you come back inside the door? And the times that I stood on that door, my heart just drew me back in. So I knew in that time, this is where I'm meant to be. I couldn't understand it. I'm going, it would be so easy right now for me just to walk away. It would be far easier to walk away. But I knew that I was meant to be here. And, in our 22 years, there's only been 2 times that we haven't slept together when we've been under the same roof. And they were both because I was drunk, and they're over 15 years ago. It happened again. And it's first time ever, Kirsty didn't want it. I actually went over there not knowing if I wanted to sleep with Kirsty in the same bed because of how I was feeling. I manifested that, but I stayed in the bed and Kirsty left and went and slept in another bed. She's never done that before. And that night we slept alone. The next morning, so much had shifted because I actually wanted to be on my own that day, that night. And I was, and I manifested that in just a different way. And Kirsty obviously wanted to be as well. And then we came back, and it's never happened since. So it's this knowing that we're on the path. We can't say that we'll be like, we can say that we'll respect each other for the rest of our life, but we can't say that we're going to be intimate partners for the rest of our life. I won't say that. I know that I'm dedicated and I'm committed in my relationship, but I'm detached. I've got this committed detachment from my relationship having to be a certain way.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no limit. There's no limit to detachment.
Totally.
There's no limit to that. It applies all the way around to everything, even ascension. It's good seeing y'all. It's always good to see y'all. It's good to see y'all. And I'm sure we'll see. And I have full confidence that we'll all meet in the physical. I'm not attached to when, and I'm not attached to that, but I just know. There's some things you just know, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But it's good seeing y'all, and best to you and to your kids, and you guys have a great holiday.
Yeah.
You too, my brother.
Love you.
Love you, mate.
Love you too. Y'all take care. Thank you.